You know, that exact physical sensation, right? That specific social tax we're diving into today.
Oh, absolutely. The physical drain is just, it's palpable.
Yeah, you find yourself cornered in the office break room or, I don't know, trapped at a table during some obligatory networking event.
We're sitting across from a certain relative during a holiday dinner. We all have one.
We really do. And the person opposite you is just talking. Like they are talking with this unrelenting rhythmic intensity.
Right, and initially you do what polite society dictates, you know?
Exactly. You wait for a natural rhythmic pause, you formulate a relevant thought, and you try to offer a contribution.
But the moment you speak,
They bulldoze right over your sentence. Or, even worse, they use your contribution as a mere transitional springboard.
yeah, just to launch into a fresh 20-minute monologue about their own life.
And that sinking feeling just hits your stomach. You
Hmm.
realize, well, you aren't actually participating in an exchange.
No, you're a human prop at that point.
Right, you've basically been reduced to an audience of one.
It functions like a localized parasocial relationship, but, in real life.
That is such a good way to put it.
Because you're expending energy attempting to be part of a two-way dynamic while the other person is basically operating a broadcast tower.
Right, and the exhaustion comes from the friction between your expectation of a conversation and the reality of their performance.
Exactly.
And our instinct in those moments is just sheer frustration. I mean, we complain to our friends later. We categorize that person as a social hazard to be avoided at all costs.
We just accept the exhaustion as an unavoidable penalty of social life.
Right. But today, we're dismantling that entire framework. So welcome to another deep dive.
I'm very excited for this one.
Same here. We're looking at a fascinating stack of psychological material that deconstructs the mechanics of conversational narcissists.
Those individuals who just, well, they're incapable of decentering themselves.
Exactly. And the mission today is to take you, the listener, from a state of social exhaustion to a position of empowered analytical observation.
We're going to explore the concept of conversational economics.
Yes, and why the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous.
Because the entire power structure of daily human interaction is honestly generally misunderstood.
How so? Like, what's the baseline assumption people make?
Well, the prevailing assumption is that the person dominating the airspace is holding the power. They appear to be steering the ship.
Right, because they're taking up all the room.
Exactly. But the material we're analyzing today argues the exact inverse. The speaker is actually in a state of vulnerability.
Wow, so they're the ones losing out.
Right. They are hemorrhaging capital while the listener is in a state of accumulation.
That dynamic is perfectly encapsulated by a specific quote from the source material. And this basically serves as the anchor for everything we're going to explore today.
I love this quote.
It's so good. The quote is, "He who opens his mouth gives information. He who listens gets information."
It just strips away all the social pleasantries, doesn't it?
It really does.
It looks at conversation as a transaction of intelligence. Like, when you speak, you are spending your privacy.
And when you listen, you are gathering data.
Precisely.
But to really leverage that asymmetric information accumulation, we first have to recognize the physiological state of the person doing the talking.
Right, we have to look for the tells.
Yeah, and the text details the physical tells of the self-talker. And one observation just stood out to me as bizarrely accurate.
The blinking phenomena.
Yes, the blinking. When you finally force a wedge into their monologue and manage to speak a sentence about your own experience, the self-talker will suddenly begin blinking rapidly.
Their eyes just flutter.
It's wild. So
Yeah.
what is actually happening there?
So the neurological mechanism behind that fluttering, it's an involuntary physical displacement of restless energy.
So they aren't like blinking to lubricate their eyes.
No, and they certainly aren't blinking in awe of the story you're telling.
Right, unfortunately for my ego.
It's basically a micro-expression of immense cognitive impatience. Their brain has already formulated their next sentence.
Oh, so they're just waiting to drop it.
Exactly. And the cognitive load of having to temporarily suppress their urge to speak creates a physical pressure.
And that pressure leaks out through the rapid blinking.
You got it.
So they are literally vibrating in the waiting room of the conversation. I mean, they aren't processing a single syllable of my story.
Not a word.
Their internal monologue is just shouting, "Is this person done making noises yet so I can resume my broadcast?"
That's exactly what's happening.
It reminds me of, well, it's like showing up to play a game of catch with someone, only to discover they didn't bring a glove.
Right. They brought a pitching machine.
Yes, They just want to fire 90-mile-per-hour baseballs at you while you stand there. And the moment you pick up a ball and try to throw it back,
The machine glitches out.
exactly. The blinking is the system glitching until it can fire at you again.
And that pitching machine operates on a very specific psychological fuel.
Which is what?
A profound, unfulfilled hunger for approval.
Wow.
Yeah, this isn't just a quirky personality trait where someone enjoys the sound of their own voice.
Right, that goes deeper than that.
Much deeper. At its core, the conversational narcissist is operating from a deficit of narcissistic supply.
So they're running on empty, essentially.
Exactly. They have a deep-seated anxiety regarding their own worth or their perceived interestingness.
So the conversation isn't actually a bridge to connect with you.
No, it is a mirror they are holding up, hoping to see a reflection of their own importance.
Okay, but wait, let's play devil's advocate here for a second. Are we sure this is always a dark narcissistic deficit?
That's a fair question.
Because, sometimes people just get excited. Or they might be neurodivergent, like someone with ADHD, hyper-focusing and oversharing, because that's just how they relate to the world.
Right.
We can't just slap a narcissist label on everyone who interrupts, right?
No, absolutely not. And the distinction lies in the reception of the interruption.
Okay, unpack that for me.
When someone is neurodivergent or simply overexcited, their hyperverbal state is usually still tethered to the shared topic.
Oh, I see.
Right. So if you interrupt them with a shared enthusiasm, they incorporate it. They build on it.
But the conversational narcissists we're discussing today.
Right. The one driven by validation hunger, they experience your input as an obstacle.
Because your story actively threatens their validation process.
Exactly. That is why the eyes glaze over. The hallmark of the behavior outlined in the text is the total lack of curiosity about the internal world of the person they are speaking to.
Wow, that's bleak.
They are starving for external evaluation, and you are merely the instrument of that evaluation.
Viewing it as starvation really changes the temperature of the interaction completely, doesn't it?
It does. It shifts everything.
Because when someone cuts you off, your immediate physiological response is a spike in cortisol. You feel disrespected, dismissed.
Your ego flares up to defend itself.
Exactly. But if you look at the rapid blinking and the steamrolling as symptoms of psychological starvation, the personal offense kind of evaporates.
Right. You transition from a participant whose boundaries are being violated to an observer noting a psychological state.
You recognize the hunger.
Yes. The internal dialogue shifts from, why is this person disrespecting my input, to, this person's ego deficit is currently dictating their behavior.
And you stop expecting a starving person to share their food.
Precisely. And in this context, the food is the conversational space.
That reframing naturally leads us to the strategic application of silence, which is a huge part of this deep dive.
It's the core tactic.
If we stop trying to fight the pitching machine and we just let them fire away, we tap into that conversational economics model we mentioned.
He who opens his mouth gives information.
Right. The text argues that the person who remains quiet walks away with vastly more value.
Because the self-talker assumes they are projecting power by controlling the airspace, but in reality...
They're leaking critical intelligence.
Exactly. They are giving away their baseline metrics while receiving absolutely zero data about you.
But what constitutes intelligence in a mundane setting? Like, if a guy in the accounting department traps me by the water cooler to talk about his amateur golf tournament for 30 minutes, he's not leaking state secrets.
No, probably not.
It feels like he's just leaking boredom. What data am I actually gathering there?
You're gathering psychological intelligence, which is arguably more potent than factual data.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, continuous, uninterrupted speech removes the filter. When people speak endlessly to feed an ego deficit, they inadvertently reveal their shatter values.
So you start to hear their deep-seated anxieties.
Yes. The elements of their life they choose to repeatedly boast about provide a perfect, inverted map of their deepest insecurity.
Oh, wow. So the guy who spends 40 minutes unprompted detailing how much money his crypto investments made last quarter
is usually the one most terrified of financial inadequacy or being perceived as lower status.
That makes so much sense. The loose-lipped individual shows their hand entirely.
Exactly. Furthermore, over an extended monologue, maintaining a fabricated persona requires immense cognitive stamina.
Right. They can't keep the mask up forever.
Eventually, they will contradict themselves. They will expose the gap between their actual character and the persona they are attempting to project.
And the silent observer collects all these structural weaknesses without offering a single vulnerability of their own in exchange.
It's a massive strategic advantage.
There is a practical mechanical issue with this strategy, though.
What's that?
Well, if my goal is to let them bleed information by remaining silent, don't I eventually have to contribute to keep the interaction alive?
You would think so.
Right, like if I just stand there mute, the conversation will die an awkward death and the interaction ends.
But that assumes the self-talker is abiding by standard social mechanics, and they are not.
Oh, right, because of the deficit.
Exactly. For individuals driven by the need for external validation, silence does not act as a natural conclusion. It acts as a vacuum.
Because empty space isn't validating them. It's neutral.
And neutral is actively threatening to their ego state.
Wow.
If you deliberately withhold your own information and do not step in to fill the conversational pauses, the silence generates anxiety within them.
And to alleviate that anxiety, they will unconsciously feel compelled to fill the void themselves.
The vacuum pulls more words out of them. They dig deeper.
So in their rush to fill the silence and secure the validation they seek, their filter just drugs completely.
Entirely. Leading to the exposure of true intentions or unvarnished opinions they never consciously intended to share.
The silence literally draws out the deeper intelligence.
It's incredibly effective.
But practically speaking, enduring that vacuum without looking entirely miserable is a challenge.
It takes practice.
Like if I am trapped by a self-talker, just standing there while they attempt to fill the void sounds like a fast track to severe social burnout.
It can be if you're approaching it the wrong way.
And the source material recognizes this, right? It draws a strict boundary between two very distinct forms of listening, one that drains you and one that protects you.
Yes, the text highlights a crucial trap that most polite people fall into, which it refers to as odate.
Odate.
Yeah.
And in a conversational context, this translates to active flattery or buttering someone up.
Right, playing the role of the perpetual hype man.
Because when most people get cornered by a narcissist, their default survival mechanism is to placate the threat.
They offer exaggerated nods. Wow, that's incredible. You handled that so well.
I can't believe you did that. They assume playing the sycophant is the fastest way to appease the ego so the interaction will just end.
And that assumption is the exact root of their social exhaustion.
Because odate is performative labor.
Exactly. It requires you to actively suppress your genuine disinterest or irritation while artificially generating and projecting enthusiasm.
So you are burning massive amounts of internal emotional currency.
To fund a performance for an audience that views you only as a mirror.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. If you rely on flattery to navigate a self-talker, you will leave the interaction entirely depleted.
So what's the alternative? The text proposes a posture of listening happily, which honestly sounds dangerously similar to flattery on the surface. We need to distinguish between the two.
The distinction is internal versus external expenditure.
Okay, tell me more.
Listening happily or amiably requires zero performative labor. You maintain your own emotional surplus.
So you aren't acting.
Not at all. You adopt a relaxed, soft physical demeanor. You might offer a simple nod, a baseline I see, or just a non-committal hum.
It functions purely as a social lubricant.
Exactly. You're not evaluating their story, you are not praising their actions, and you are not faking amazement.
You are just providing the bare minimum friction required for them to continue talking.
Yes.
You know, the implications of that for introverts or anyone who suffers from chronic social fatigue are massive.
Oh, it's life-changing.
People who claim they are drained by people are often actually drained by the performance of odate.
They conflate being a good listener with actively entertaining the speaker.
They view listening as an active responsibility rather than a passive observation.
And once you sever that connection, once you realize you have zero obligation to actively flatter, the speaker listening ceases to be a taxing chore.
You essentially shift your vehicle into neutral and let the other person burn their own gas to push you down the hill.
That's a great analogy. They receive the minimal feedback loop necessary to keep dispensing information, and you spend none of your own energy maintaining the machine.
Okay, let's escalate the stakes a bit.
Let's do it.
Using this amiable, neutral posture to manage an annoying relative is one thing. But the source material pushes this tactic into much more hostile territory.
Yes, it becomes a defensive mechanism.
Right. This isn't just about preserving energy.
Yeah.
It is framed as a defensive tactic against people actively trying to map your weaknesses.
The text specifically warns about interacting with the appraiser.
The appraiser. We all know the appraiser.
We do. It's a highly specific archetype found frequently in corporate environments, negotiations, or competitive social hierarchies.
This is the individual who engages you not to connect, but to test.
Precisely. They ask questions designed to evaluate your intellect, your status, or your utility.
The interaction is inherently predatory.
Very much so.
It's that subtle probing. They casually ask about your background or your opinion on a complex topic, and you can feel them running an algorithm in their head.
Trying to determine where you sit on the food chain relative to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in these scenarios, the text is unequivocal.
Yeah.
Do not speak. Do not offer your genuine thoughts.
Because providing your authentic opinions, your personal anecdotes, or your genuine emotional reactions to an appraiser is equivalent to handing a hostile force the schematics to your fortress.
Wow.
You are voluntarily supplying the exact metrics they require to judge you, categorize you, and subsequently manipulate you.
This is the perilous side of the conversational economy.
It really is. When you open your mouth in front of an appraiser, you are bleeding leverage.
So the instruction from the text is to seal away your stories.
Yes.
But it uses a highly peculiar term to describe this withdrawal. It frames the act of withholding your input as a form of education.
Right. Educating the speaker.
Now, this needs careful dissection. The text argues that conversation requires a basic balance. If you speak, you must listen. When someone violates that balance, sealing your stories away is educating them.
Correct.
But if I try to actively educate an arrogant appraiser, aren't I just entering a power struggle? Am I supposed to adopt a punitive stance and teach them a lesson?
Viewing the education as a punitive measure or a scolding is a misinterpretation.
Okay, so what does it actually mean?
You are not assuming the role of their therapist or their parent.
Thank goodness.
Attempting to actively correct an appraiser's behavior requires an immense expenditure of energy and usually backfires, honestly, as it signals that they have successfully affected you emotionally.
Ah, right. It shows they got under your skin.
Exactly. The education discussed in the text is entirely about establishing an internal structural boundary.
So I am not educating the person. I am educating the dynamic.
Yes, you are systematically revoking their access to your data.
You are dictating the terms of engagement through omission.
Sealing away your stories means you consciously decide that your valuable self-disclosures will not be offered to someone who seeks to weaponize them.
You just maintain that amiable, neutral posture.
Right. You let them speak, you let them probe, and you respond with pleasant, uninformative neutrality.
And by doing so, you force them to operate in the vacuum we talked about earlier.
And they will eventually overextend, revealing their own motives and insecurities while you remain entirely protected.
They learn nothing about your capabilities, and you learn everything about their tactics.
It functions like verbal judo.
Yes, you aren't blocking their strikes. You are simply stepping out of the way and letting their own momentum throw them off balance.
They assume they are running an interrogation, but by remaining an amiable void, you are the one extracting the intelligence.
You exit the interaction strategically enriched and emotionally untouched.
While they exit having exposed their framework.
All of these tactics, recognizing the physical blinking, weaponizing the vacuum of silence, replacing flattery with amiable observation, and sealing away our stories from hostile appraisers.
It all builds to a larger point.
Right. It culminates in what the source material frames as a master psychological reframing.
It's not just about surviving these interactions.
No, it is about fundamentally altering how these people make you feel on a core emotional level.
The text claims we can take visceral disgust or annoyance and transmute it into genuine fascination.
Which elevates the material from a tactical playbook to a cognitive philosophy.
Because negative emotional reactions in social settings, the anger, the frustration, the feeling of being trapped, they are almost always rooted in a lack of comprehension.
When an individual is behaving obnoxiously and you do not understand the underlying architecture of why they are doing it, their behavior feels like a chaotic, personal assault on your autonomy.
It feels targeted. You think, why is this person doing this to me? Why don't they respect my time?
But the moment you comprehend the mechanics, the moment you recognize the validation deficit causing the eyes to flutter, or the predatory insecurity driving the appraiser, the mystery dissolves.
And when the mystery dissolves, the perceived personal threat dissolves right along with it.
The internal narrative shifts from a victimized, I hate this situation, to an analytical, I see the exact psychological machinery driving your behavior.
It is the cognitive difference between being terrified of a thunderstorm because you believe the gods are punishing you versus being a meteorologist observing the storm.
I love that analogy. The meteorologist isn't offended by the lightning. They're just observing the interaction of atmospheric pressures.
Right. They can appreciate the raw data of the storm without taking it personally.
The text pushes this meteorological observation into what it calls the thank you mindset.
This is a challenging concept for a lot of people.
Yeah, it suggests that internally you should express gratitude toward the conversational narcissist. Like, while they are monologuing, your internal monologue should be, "Thank you for providing me with so much data today."
Yes.
I am going to push back on this quite firmly, actually.
Go for it.
The tactical silence makes sense, but adopting a thank you mindset feels incredibly patronizing.
It can definitely sound that way.
Right. Like if I am sitting across from a 50-year-old department head who is aggressively talking over me and wasting my time, internally whispering, "Thank you for the data," feels dangerously close to arrogant delusion.
I see your point.
It feels like I am putting myself on a pedestal, pretending I have transcended human annoyance while silently psychoanalyzing someone as if they are a specimen in a petri dish.
Your resistance is totally valid as it touches on the real risk of adopting a superiority complex. However, the text anticipates this, and it anchors the thank you mindset not in arrogance, but in a profound recognition of emotional immaturity.
Emotional immaturity. We're talking about functioning, often highly successful adults in the workplace. Calling them immature feels like exactly the kind of arrogant dismissal I'm talking about.
Well, we must separate professional competence from developmental emotional regulation.
Okay, explain that.
The text posits that individuals who compulsively force their narratives onto others, who are utterly incapable of holding space for another person's reality, are operating from an arrested state of emotional development.
So they are stunted, emotionally speaking.
Yes, a truly mature individual possesses the internal bandwidth and the emotional security to receive the world.
They don't require every interaction to serve as a mirror reflecting their own significance.
Exactly. The conversational narcissist simply lacks that developmental bandwidth.
So you are saying they are fundamentally stuck?
Yes.
They have the professional title, but in the realm of emotional regulation, they are toddlers who haven't learned object permanence.
Essentially, yes. They don't realize other people have internal lives.
Wow.
And when a toddler throws a tantrum because they lack the vocabulary to express their frustration, you do not feel deeply personally offended.
Right, you don't interpret the tantrum as a calculated attempt to dominate your ego.
No. You recognize it as a limitation of their current developmental stage. You observe the behavior, you manage the environment, but you do not take the screaming personally.
That is the crux of it right there.
It is.
If I expect the department head to behave like an emotionally regulated adult, their bulldozing offends me.
Naturally.
But if I accurately assess that they possess the emotional regulation of a validation-starved adolescent, the offense disappears. I am no longer holding them to a standard they are incapable of meeting.
And that accurate assessment is exactly what frees you from the emotional drain.
So the thank you mindset isn't about feeling superior. It is about feeling relieved.
Yes, you are relieved of the burden of trying to force a reciprocal interaction where none is possible.
You protect your peace, you gather your intelligence, and you allow their immaturity to unfold without it infecting your own emotional state.
It is the ultimate establishment of an internal boundary.
You just let them be exactly who they are, which ironically takes vastly less energy than being quietly furious at them for not being who you want them to be.
Precisely.
We have covered incredible ground today. I mean, we moved from decoding the frantic, blinking desperation of the validation-starved talker
To understanding the sheer asymmetric leverage of the silent listener.
We dissected the exhaustion of performative flattery, replaced it with amiable
And
observation.
we learned how to seal our data away from predatory appraisers.
Ultimately, we reframed the entire experience, taking the frustrating pitching machine and turning it into a fascinating, detached study in human emotional development.
The framework completely rewires how you will approach every room you enter from now on.
It really does.
But there is a secondary application to everything we have discussed, and it serves as a rather piercing final thought for the listener.
Oh, turn the mirror around for us.
We have spent this entire deep dive analyzing how to defend yourself against those who dominate the airspace. We have weaponized the silence.
Right.
But consider the inverse scenario. The next time you find yourself holding court in a meeting, or dominating the narrative on a date, or complaining endlessly about a colleague, and you notice the person across from you is simply sitting there. They are smiling amiably, they are nodding softly.
Just offering absolutely no substantive input of their own.
Ask yourself, are they simply being polite?
Or have they recognized your hunger
Sealed away their own stories?
and are currently sitting in the vacuum, quietly accumulating all your data while you expose your own deep-seated insecurities?
something to think about.
A completely chilling, brilliant flip of the dynamic. He who opens his mouth gives information. He who listens gets information.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take these concepts, step into the conversational economy, and start observing who is spending and who is collecting. We will catch you on the next one.